Hi, my name is Arik from Lauren B, and we're back for another Diamonds 101 segment to give you some insider knowledge on what to look for when selecting your center diamond. So as you can see today, we have a lot of goodies for you here. They're all oval diamonds, which is going to be the topic today. Oval diamonds are what we base it off of as the most popular shape in 2021. And it was once thought of as an old-fashioned shape, but over the past decade, it's really risen to the top of the charts, and it looks like it's going to stay there for the foreseeable future. So here we have a lineup of a bunch of oval diamonds around the 2-carat size range, and we prepared everything so that we can show you the differences and what to look for when purchasing your stone. So why is an oval diamond really sought after? It really comes down to the shape and how elongated it is and how much finger coverage that it takes up. So there are other elongated shapes like marquee or pear, but they're a little bit sharper on the edges. Oval is soft on both tips and has a nice rounded appearance to it. So think of it as like a round diamond that's a little bit stretched out. So there's a lot of pitfalls, a lot of things to look out for when purchasing an oval diamond. There's a lot of websites, there's your local jewelers who will just try to sell you anything. They really don't care, if you're getting the best stone for your money. So we're going to try to break it down for you here. So what's the most important thing about an oval diamond? It's the cut of the stone. Now, unlike a round diamond, there is no cut grade on the GIA report. So I'm just going to show you quickly. We're going to reference this a couple of times, but you'll see here all it says is polish and symmetry. On a round diamond grading report from GIA, it's going to put cut and it's going to tell you excellent, very good, and so forth. But it's very hard to quantify just based on these measurements how the cut is, because you can't really determine how it's going to look in real life. So what are we talking about when we talk about the cut? We're talking about how the angles are, the proportions. So one of the first things I'm going to mention is you want a stone that does not have kind of pointy tips, which this one does. It's a little bit pointed on the edges and it bows out at the sides a little bit. So this is something you can't see on the GIA grading report. It's a little bit slight. It's maybe not very easy to tell, but let me just compare it to another stone that we have here. And you'll see something like this on my right is a little bit more well proportioned. You see how the sides are a little bit flatter, comes up to the top more gracefully, and the tips are very well rounded, doesn't come to any kind of point at any side. So that's kind of the first thing to look out for. That's a little bit harder, trickier to see because you have to see that in real life. You have to kind of know what you're looking for to see the difference. But the next thing to look out for is the measurements. And this is very, very crucial, because just because two diamonds weigh the same does not mean that they will have the same measurements face up. So I'm going to show you something over here, and I'm going to first pull out this diamond over here. And this one, believe it or not, actually does weigh the same as this stone. So these are both 2-carat diamonds. And that's very hard to believe, because how could one look so much bigger than the other? And it really just comes down to the way it's proportioned. So this stone here is over 10 millimeters long. I think it's 10.2 to be exact. And this one is only 9.3, but they both weigh 2 carats. So if you're not understanding fully what you're purchasing, you might end up with something like this that really looks like a 1.5 carat diamond, and you're paying the price for something that's 2 carats. So that's something you have to be very cognizant of when you're purchasing. Always look at the measurements and make sure that the stone is properly proportioned. So I want to show you the GIA reports on these 2 diamonds. So this is the first stone from our stock that we have. This is a 2-carat DVS2. The color and clarity is not really what we're talking about now, but look at the measurements, 10.25 by 7. That's this measurement here is the length, and the 7 millimeters is across the center. Now let's compare that to the other stone I showed you, which I grabbed from an outside vendor just to show for comparison purposes. And you'll see here, this is also weighs 2 carats, but look at the measurements. Pales in comparison. It's 9.3 millimeters and 6.6 across, which is hard to believe that it's almost a full millimeter in size and difference, yet they weigh the same. Why? Because this stone is cut very deep. And because it's cut very deep, a lot of the weight is hidden underneath of the stone. So that's kind of a very important thing to look out for. Watch the measurements, make sure you have a good proportion stone. And now this stone, believe it or not, weighs less. This is 1.7 carat from our stock. And you'll see that even for our 1.7 carat, it's going to look much bigger than some of these other 2 carats that are in the market. So always be careful when purchasing. Don't go just by the weight and just flip it to the side. I just want to show you how the depth looks, because that's important. You'll notice that this one is significantly deeper on the pavilion. All the weight is hidden there. And this one comes nice and sharp underneath. So that's a big difference to look out for there. And I'm going to just reference the GIA reports one more time just to show you. And this is a 1.7 carat diamond from our stock. And this is way above average. This is 10 millimeters long by 6.4 if you round it up. And then we're going to compare that to the other heavy diamond that we looked at before. 9.3 millimeters by 6.6. So you're getting a stone at 1.7 that looks bigger than a 2 carat, and it's going to come out to be less expensive, and it's going to look much better in person. It's going to have a better sparkle as well. So very important to notice the measurements and the outline of the stone. Then based on cut, there's also one other factor that's the ratio. So here we actually lined up these 4 stones in order of ratio size. So in the past, when ovals first started becoming popular, the wider stones like this were actually more in demand. This ratio is 1.35 to 1, which is wider. It's not really as desired now because people are all about the finger coverage. They want it to go more lengthwise. Here's a nice one. This is 1.4 to 1. It's like kind of a nice middle ground, as well as this one getting a little bit longer. This is 1.45 to 1. And if you really want something elongated, we do offer these stones as well. These are about 1.55 to 1 ratio. But let me just compare kind of 2 side by side. So this here is a 1.35 to 1 ratio, and this is a 1.45 to 1 ratio. They both weigh 2 carats, both have proper measurements, I would say. This one is just cut wider. I don't think it's a bad stone. It just has more on the width, and this one has more on the length. And a lot of people will prefer this stone because it does look bigger. I'm going to show you this stone versus something even longer. This is now a 1.451 as last time, and a 1.55 to 1. And you can see you're getting even more on the length here. It is a little bit skinnier, meaning it has less on the from left to right, but sometimes you don't notice that as much, and people are willing to sacrifice that again to cover more of the finger when it's on the ring. So what is length to width ratio? I'm just going to show you now, kind of segue out of just talking about ovals for a second. I'm just going to bring out this little millimeter gauge over here. I'm just going to show you how we calculate it. So we just take the stone, and of course you can just get this on the GA report, but it's fun to show you like this. So here it tells you exactly how long it is. It's 10.25. Remember that number. And we're just going to flip it to the side here. 7.02. Okay, so that's basically it. So now just go over here. 10.25 divided by 7.02. 1.46. That's the ratio. That's the length to width ratio. So the higher that number gets, the longer the stone is. The smaller the number gets, that's the stone getting a little bit wider. So next thing we're going to talk about is the color of the stone. Color, again, goes from D to Z. For oval diamonds, ovals do tend to show color more than other shapes. We recommend anything I and above. We would not go down to J color for an oval unless the client specifies that and they're okay with the warmer color, because it does become very noticeable there. I is borderline. Sometimes it could be not noticeable, sometimes it's something you want to avoid, and then anything H or better should be okay. And a lot of people do find they want to stay in that colorless range for an oval, and they're willing to sacrifice a little bit more in the clarity, which we'll get into in a minute. Let's just take a couple stones here just to do some comparisons. So I'm going to take the highest color we have out here, which is these D color stone. So that's the best you can get, and let me just compare it versus a G color, and you will notice quite a difference because we're talking about 3 color grades. We have the best color grade D versus near colorless. But again, sometimes you cannot look at them side by side. If you just take them apart a little bit and I remove the D color, the G color does look beautiful, and once you mount it into a ring, it becomes even less noticeable. And then let's just take this color and we'll compare it with a H color, which is here. Very similar, so I think G and H kind of go hand in hand sometimes. And each stone is unique, so just because it says G or H on the GIA, you still have to inspect it. Sometimes it can have more color or less color, depending on how the grader looked at it. It is subjective to its degree. So next we're going to jump from color to clarity, and here is the GIA scale of clarity. Flawless is the highest grade, and in here you'll never even see the inclusions even with a microscope. And we go down to SI2, so that's kind of the range to look at, but a lot of people for oval diamonds are going to focus kind of in this area, and even down to SI1 and SI2 because it does provide better value. Now this is on a case-by-case basis. You want to make sure the stone is eye clean, does not have any inclusions that are visible, and does not have a milky appearance to it. Now I just prepared one SI2 stone here. I'm going to show you from a little bit of a distance, and you won't be able to see anything obviously from here. And even under a microscope, the SI2s that we pick for stock, you're really not going to be able to see the inclusions with the naked eye. So I'm going to try to put the loop over it. It's not a clear exact look, but if there's any kind of noticeable blemish or inclusion or anything of that nature, you would be able to see it right away. So remember, for clarity, you can be a little bit more forgiving than with color. You can go down to the SI range and make sure that you have someone inspecting the stone, or you have a video or something of that nature, so that you notice the difference. Next topic we're going to talk about is a bow tie in a diamond. It's something that you kind of just have to live with the stone to a certain degree. Sometimes it shows up more than others. This one has a little bit of a bow tie across the center. It's just those two black areas on the side facets over here that go across the middle of the stone. But again, when you move the stone around, or it's set in a ring, or you have it not under direct light, it becomes much less noticeable. The only really way to avoid this completely is to have a very deep stone, because once the facets are deeper underneath, it kind of hides the dark spots on top. But that's something I would probably not offer as a trade-off, because you're going to lose a lot of the face-up dimensions. So it's something you just have to kind of bear with a little bit. You don't want it to be too noticeable. It sometimes shows up more in the very shallow stones, but something like this is very acceptable. It's not too noticeable to the naked eye, and something that most people can live with. Now let's just do a quick comparison of oval against some other popular shapes. We're not going to do all of them. We just picked a few for today. So first up, let's do the pear shape, because this seems to always be another elongated shape that's quite popular with our customers. And you'll notice right away the main difference is just the outline of the stone. The pear shape has that teardrop outline to it, where it comes to a point right at the tip. So it does have a little bit of a more distinct appearance, sharper look to it that some people love. And also the ratio. Generally, a pear-shaped diamond will have a little bit of a longer ratio from the bottom to the top, around 1.65 to 1 in that area, while an oval diamond on average is going to be around 1.45 to 1. So if you really want more finger coverage, go for the pear shape, but oval does have a softer appearance, and I think that's kind of why it is considerably more popular and in demand with our clients. Next, let's take it up against a round diamond, which is a nice comparison, because it's always good to compare against the round, which is kind of the benchmark of all shapes. I mean, you'll notice as with against any other shape, round is going to overtake it in sparkle. It just has no areas where there's lacking any kind of brilliance or fire. It's perfectly symmetrical and round, so it's easier to cut exactly to specific dimensions. Oval's like a little bit more stretched out, so you will get more finger coverage out of this, but of course round diamond does have more fire and brilliance, and you can see that just both of those ideas from the video here. Next, we're going to show you a cushion cut diamond. This is all 2 carats, by the way, just in case you're trying to reference some size. And they're all colorless VS or SI quality, so all very similar in that respect. And cushion cut diamonds, this is elongated actually, and compared to the oval, it does not look elongated, which is expected because this is a 1.45 to 1 ratio, while the cushion cut is a 1.1 ratio. So you're never going to get the same finger coverage out of a cushion. You will get a little bit of a fuller appearance from like left to right, and you also get a little bit more fuller, on the edges. It doesn't come to a point anywhere, and it also has like a more pillowy, softer look to it, which is kind of the major, draw for the shape of the cushion. Next, let's show you some diamond and moissanite comparison to kind of cap it off over here. And I'm going to show you first 2 different types of moissanite ovals. There is the Harrow Gem moissanite, which is this one, which is actually the one that is considered to look more diamond-like because they can cut them to be a little bit more elongated. This is a 10 by 7.2, which is probably almost the same dimensions as this oval ring, all similar designs, which makes it a good comparison as well. And then we also have this one. This is the Charles & Covard version. This is 9 by 7, so they make them a little bit wider. They don't cut them as elongated. You'll also notice that this Charles & Covard has like a lot of fire and those spectral colors coming out of it, which is kind of makes it a little bit more of a telltale sign that it is a moissanite. So that's why people do prefer the Harrow Gem moissanite for the ovals as opposed to the Charles & Covard ones in general, but sometimes people do go for this one as well. And just to compare the 2 moissanites versus each other, this is Harrow and this is Charles & Covard. And you'll see this one is wider, has more fire coming out of it. This one looks a little bit more like a diamond as far as its outline and the way that it doesn't have as much colors coming from the stone. So that kind of wraps up our segment today on oval diamonds. I hope we covered all the topics for you. And you can always go on our website. We do have a beautiful selection of oval diamonds in stock. You can see a beautiful HD video, and you can see all the nuances of the stone, the outline, and see all the details you want, GI report, and you can request a price direct on here, and you can speak to one of our design consultants. So if you have any questions, please email us at info@laurenb.com, and please be sure to tune in next time for another Diamonds 101 segment.